Hey, this is G from Outlier Automation. Today I'm going to show you how to update the firmware of an IoT2050 from Siemens, that is the IoT Gateway. I've posted about this in the past and people seem to think it's pretty cool, so I will continue talking about it. This particular device that I have is a year or two old at this point. It's an 2050 Basic, and the firmware on here actually is required to be updated so that it matches some other devices that we have. And this one was one of the first ones released and has actually a functional state of FS01. So I'm going to show here how I'm going to do this, and basically just following along with documentation that I found on Siemens' website, but I can show how to actually do it in real time. All right, so I'm going to go over to my desktop here. So I found the firmware update to use example image of version 1.2.1, and that's actually like what I'm trying to do here. I have the IoT2050 Basic, as I mentioned, and all of the other devices that I have provisioned are all on 1.2.1. This particular one that I have actually was like one of the first ones we set up as a demo, so now I want to upgrade it. So my trusty guy, Bergmanu, who I think is like one of the developers for IoT2050, he posts a bunch of stuff around the Siemens forums on how to do this stuff. And as you know, or you may know, that the IoT2050 is kind of a new product as of last year. And so the hardware and software and resources in Siemens have kind of been evolving for some time. So anyways, what we're going to do is, what you can see here is that on mine, this PG1 device is FS01, which I mentioned. To use my example image 1.2.1, I need to update the firmware. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so I want to go over here, and you can see that it says it is required to perform the firmware update with example image v1.11. So I'm actually going to start from there. That's going to take me over to, I guess I have it in my other tab, but downloads for SIMATIC IoT2050. In this section, you can see that there is both the images. So 111 was what my device currently has. I want to go to 122, and it is only able to be used with firmware 121 for my functional state. And in order to get the firmware, I have to go down here and download this. And I'm going to follow this document here. Let me open this up. And I actually had already downloaded those. I have these images, which I basically just have like an SD card in here right now that is just that raw image with nothing really set up. And then I'm going to be following the firmware update files folder. This is 2 files that I'm basically going to have to transfer to my device once I get it set connected here. And then I'm going to power this on now. I have my SD card in here. Like I said, it's basically just a blank image of that example 111. And if you poked around with this enough, you'll know that between 111 and 121, they actually changed the 2 Ethernet ports as to which one's the static IP address. So hopefully I'm right here. I believe it is port 1 is 192.168.200. And if we go to our firmware update resource here, it will say that we basically need to connect to the device and transfer these files over here. So let me get that open, and I will show you where that says that in the documentation. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my SSH now. I use a tool called MobaXterm, which is just basically like PuTTY and WinSCP, but on steroids. So I already have a SSH session set up here to the 200.1 default static IP address for the 2050s. So I'm going to go here. When you first have a default image, it's root and the password is root. And so then I'm going to go in. It asks, since it's basically a blank image, it asks me to set up a new password. Okay, so now I am in here, and if I go back to my documentation, it asks you to check your image and your build ID. I already did that. And then what you want to do is transfer your files that you downloaded, which is over here, over to the device itself. So I'm going to go back to MOBA here, and I'm going to open up also this SFTP, File Transfer Protocol session. Okay, and this over here is the device, and over here is my computer, my host. And I'm going to just move that right over. Okay, so now it has updated. Okay, and I have this db and tar file. Okay, so I'm going to list, and if I go back to the next steps here, we're going to uninstall the existing firmware update and update using what I just transferred. So I guess I'll just move this side by side at this point. Okay, so I can do new package. Okay, and then you're going to move to the location that you moved your files to. So there we go. Okay. And I think there was one more folder in there. No, okay. So now what I'm going to do is install the correct one. So now dpackage I and then T, this pushing tab. Okay. So now setting up, okay. Now, okay. And then now the firmware can be updated. So check the current installed firmware. W print version. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. Yes, okay. So it just printed out the version here. All right, now I'm going to do this update. Okay, IoT2050 firmware update. Oh, well, this is pointing to the file that we transferred over, so I could have just pushed tab. Okay, confirm they will be reset to factory. Yes. Okay. Okay, so now it is updating, and we'll just watch that finish. All right, so now that finished, and I'm going to do restart. Okay, let that come up. Okay, here we go. So it just looks like it took a little bit for that to restart the SSH server. So I'm going to okay. And now we're going to check that the firmware version has updated to that 1.2 version. So fw print environment firmware version. Okay, great. So that is all set, and that is what the process of updating the firmware of the IoT2050 is. In my next video, I will show how to get the next image in order to expand some of the capability of the 2050. All right, thank you, and I wish you luck in playing with your 2050.